Okay, this is an advanced game. Let's try to get a feel for what's going on. Pawn to queen 4. Knight to c6. I'm sorry, knight to f6. Woo. Pawn to c4. Pawn to e6. Knight to c3. Bishop b4. This is the Nimzo Indian. Queen to c2. Pawn to d4. The idea in this opening is to prevent white from being able to get a strong center with pawn to e4. Pawn to d4 places 2 pieces on e4, and white only has 1 defender because the knight is pinned. e3. This blocks in the bishop, but the bishop really doesn't have a good square to go to right now. And even in the main line of the variation, that's a very normal move. Your ambition is to just fianchetto your bishop. Castle gets the king out of the center. Knight to f3. Looking at that strong square for the knight, as long as this knight is here, that becomes a post. With black's idea, once this knight gets played here, he'll try to play the knight back and use the pawn to get rid of that centralized knight. Knight to d7, wanting to challenge the knight if he does arrive at e5. Bishop d3. Now white has 1, 2, 1, 2 defending. So white could possibly get in the e4. Black needs to decide what can be done about it. He goes c5. This really complicates things, because now if e4, pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and you really don't have a strong center for white because the pawns have been exchanged. Knight to e5, queen to c7, threatening knight takes, pawn takes, queen takes. Knight takes knight, queen takes knight. Now black apparently has been successful in removing that knight from his post. White should probably try to hold on to that post, even going into a stone wall variation if necessary. But he gave up the post. White gets his king out of the center. Good solid move. Now black decides it's time to make the exchanges. So you always have to be careful when you're making an exchange. Very often the person to take first is the person who's giving up something. In this case, black wanted to gain a tempo, which he has because the bishop has already moved once. She'll have to move again and then again if they want to control that diagonal. So that's why you always take after that bishop has set up, either at e2 or d3. Bishop recaptures. Bishop takes knight. Now here's an important item. White wants to control e4. If he takes with the queen, then he has no pieces covering the e4 square, and that's a very important square to advance. It might have been white's best interest to capture with the pawn, which would have also given him a square for his bishop to move to connect the rooks. If this bishop stays here, this rook will remain out of the game. Capture here, the bishop has somewhere to go, and you still are threatening pawn to e4. White actually captured with the queen. Now he's not covering e4 at all, and the bishop is still blocking the rook in, as well as not having any mobility in the bishop. Black continues b6. The idea here is to fianchetto the bishop and have additional control over e4. White plays a rook to challenge for e4. Bishop stops an e4 advance. Now it's interesting here, since this knight has been removed, white could get in as e4 that way. And that's a concept that you have to think of to use pawns to advance the neighboring pawns. In actuality, white tried to do it with his pieces. Queen moves to d3. Black challenges the queen. It's good to challenge your opponent's pieces if it gives you a better post for your piece or better development for your piece, because then your opponent doesn't have the option of all their pieces. In this position, white has to move the queen. Remember, rooks belong on open files, so this rook is anticipating this file becoming open, moves there. Okay, let's look at this again. Rook is back here, queen is here. Actually, this queen moved here. Then the rook went to the half open file, and white sees that this bishop is going to be pinned to the queen, so he tries to avoid the pin, which leads to the loss of a piece. It's a discovered attack on the bishop. If the queen captures, pawn captures queen, rook captures bishop. So of course white doesn't want that, tries to hide the bishop. And this is where you don't want to make fast moves. You want to think about your moves, get a rhythm to your game, especially in street chess where you don't have 2 hours of play. So you get a sort of rhythm and play within that rhythm. Pawn takes. Now black has 2 attackers on the bishop. The bishop is only defended once. Fortunately, white was able to find rook takes pawn. Now 2 defenders, 2 attackers. Black's pieces are very active, and when your opponent has the more active pieces, you want to exchange those pieces off. White left them on the board. Interesting thing here is that a capture of the bishop, captured by the knight, attacking the queen and attacking the rook, that could cause problems. Again, rooks belong on open files. Black has successfully gotten both of his rooks on the open file. What white's idea was to threaten checkmate. It's good to threaten checkmate, but again, only if it improves the position of your overall pieces and position of your overall pieces and the position in its entirety. What actually happened, the bishop comes back. Now the bishop blocks the mate and is threatening the queen. So white, instead of being able to make another developing move, especially get this bishop out and the rook out, has to do something about the queen. The options are queen here, queen here, queen here, or queen back here. Now what influences the move is the king is actually blocked in. That's a mating square. So you have to be careful of where you place the queen. If queen goes here, rook takes, attacking the queen, attacking the rook. Take back with your queen, you lose your queen. Queen goes here, going right into a pin, knight here, attacking the queen and attacking the rook. If bishop takes a knight, attacking black's queen, rook takes queen, bishop takes queen, rook checkmate. What was decided upon was to hide the queen there. Now, because white went for the mate, now the queen has next to no mobility. You have to always assume that your opponent is going to see the threat of mate or whatever type of threat it is. Then you ask yourself, will you have a better position or a worse position if they see your threat? You always want to decide on a better position. Don't make the move if you're going to end up with a worse position if they see your threat. Queen to e4. This move only works because bishop takes queen leads to checkmate. Now black has 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces all on this one square that happens to be occupied by the bishop. And that's how you coordinate your pieces. They should all be working together, not independently attacking a whole assortment of squares. At this point, white appears to have run out of ideas and just accepts the fact that a piece is lost. Black gets a piece, white gets a piece, black captures a rook, white captures a rook, black gets another piece. So in that exchange, black went up ahead a piece, and wherever you are ahead in material, especially significant material, 2 pawns or more, you want to go ahead, exchange off the pieces, keep your pawns, and queen a pawn, win the endgame. White's idea is to attack the pinned piece, which is a good idea. Black's idea is to prevent the attack of the pinned piece. White goes for mobility, seeing that this rook is unprotected. Black is ahead in material, so he wants to exchange off the queens. White wants to complicate the position, keep as many pieces as possible on the board, so avoids the exchange. Black takes control of its own second rank. That's where the pawns would have been in danger. White takes the check. Black king steps up, and now white cannot attack the king. The white queen cannot attack the king all by herself. She tries to get help from the rook, always a good idea. And it's an excellent idea whenever you have an opportunity to occupy the 7th rank. And you have to watch your own moves, because once you make the move, you can't take it back. You have to consider, what is your opponent going to do after I make this move? White probably would not have moved that king if he had considered queen to h2. The threat is checkmate at h1. At this point, white resigned, but even if tried to avoid it, black would still check. If you block, rook takes, queen checks, king moves out, queen takes, check, king takes, queen, and black is a whole piece ahead, so it's an easy endgame win. The other option, if check, king steps out, check, king steps out, check, king can no longer move that way, has to move back, doesn't want to move here because that would allow the rook to check, moves there, bishop checks, I'm sorry, queen checks, king can't go there, can't stay there, can't go behind him, checkmate. Okay, that was an advanced game. I hope you have something that will improve your game.